A family member told me that my husband was cheating on me. I decided to work with a private investigator and dig deep into everything. My sister-in-law and I found out that my husband had been cheating on me with his ex-wife. Until now, I never truly understood how someone could be so blinded by their partner. He was doting and loving, and our intimate life was great. Our family and friends blended together perfectly. We rarely argued, and the times we did, we made it a point to always fix our issues instead of letting them fester. I truly thought our marriage was blissful. Even now, I couldn't tell why he chose this path, especially at a time when we were discussing expanding our family. He was the one who even brought up the topic. I've always been content with just us and the kids he had with his ex-wife. I've never had the urge to have my own. I just kind of accepted that I would be happy if it didn't happen, and happy if it did. My only real goal was to have a thriving career. I never truly looked beyond that, until he mentioned how he would like more kids. Around the same time I found out about my husband's affair, I had to go on a business trip. I spent that time in a nauseous fog, partly because I was drinking alone in my hotel room. And the other part was because I watched them going at it from our security cameras. My husband switched them off for privacy, as I'm sure he does often. They were taking full advantage of the fact that the kids and I were away. It was truly sickening, but at the same time, I couldn't turn it off. There were times his ex would try to convince him to break things off with me. He was always very angry at that idea. She pouted, he apologized, and they went back at it. They had that same argument almost every day. When I finally had to come back home, I was surprised by my sister-in-law and adorable nephew, a new addition to my already big family. At first, she lectured me like any big sister would for ignoring her when it came to the topic of my husband. Then, she surprised me by pulling out a business card for a private investigator. I guess working in law enforcement has allowed her to meet some pretty useful people. This guy has been on my case since the very day we found out. She was relieved at how well I took the news about the private investigator. She was afraid I was going to stay with him, and she thought that hiring a private investigator was overstepping. My husband's side of the family is very small. His ex-wife's side of the family has held a grudge over my husband remarrying someone nearly 10 years younger. From what the kids tell us, they would often talk trash about me and my family. In contrast, my side of the family is rather big, filled with teens. The kids have bonded immensely with my family, and my parents treat them just like any of their other grandchildren. I know this news will devastate them, but I also know my family wouldn't just drop them, simply because I'm not married to their father anymore. After my sister-in-law left, I realized I had to be done with the pity party. I spent weeks crying, and I now needed to get my life in order. The sooner, the better. I got in touch with a private investigator. We met for lunch in a small cafe. After a general conversation for a few minutes, he handed me a flash drive. He had his laptop ready to show me something, but I declined. I've already seen enough, and I didn't want to see anymore. I thanked him for his time. Update. Shortly after lunch, my dear husband called me to say he would be late. I normally wouldn't think twice because we both have demanding jobs. But now I know he's most likely going to see his ex. This not only angered me more, but it motivated me more too. After the call, I ended up arranging dinner with my close friend and her wife. I got to talking after dinner, and I informed her I would be needing her services. She's in family law. I basically broke down the last few weeks of my life, including the memory stick I had gotten from the private investigator. I showed them the evidence from our security camera footage and our prenup, which had been locked away in our safe. I dreaded the end of the night. Of course, I could go to my parents' house, but that would open a ton of questions I wasn't ready to answer. Instead, once again, I went back home. I'm waiting for the divorce to be filed before making my next move.